In 2013, a blast ripped through the Pemex headquarters in Mexico City, killing dozens and injuring more than 100. The official explanation? A gas leak. But the timing was convenient. Just as Mexico was preparing to open its oil sector to foreign investment for the first time in 75 years, Pemex, the state-run oil giant, was falling apart from the inside. Sabotage, corruption, or just another tragic accident. That explosion was only the surface level pressure leak of a company boiling over. So to understand how Pemex became both Mexico's crown jewel and its Achilles heel, we need to go back to the oil that built a nation and broke it in the same breath.
Pemex wasn't born out of business ambition. It was born out of rebellion. In 1938, then Mexican President Lázaro Cárdenas stunned the world when he expropriated all foreign oil companies operating in the country. The British and American firms were kicked out overnight, and a new state-owned company was created, Petróleos Mexicanos. At the time, this move was a big middle finger to imperialism. It gave Mexicans national pride, jobs, and ownership over their own resources. Pemex became a symbol, a powerhouse. For decades, it funded schools, hospitals, and highways. Oil money flowed like gold. But behind that patriotic glow, a darker dynamic was already forming. Because if you control the oil, you control the money. And if you control the money, you control the politics. So how did Pemex go from revolutionary victory to a bureaucratic monster? Well, that begins with a bunch of oil, power, can corrupt.
Pemex was never just an oil company. It became the government's piggy bank. Since Pemex was state-owned, all its profits flowed into the federal budget. That meant the company was milked dry year after year to pay for everything from public housing to political favors. Instead of reinvesting in exploration, maintenance, or tech, Pemex was forced to bankroll the entire government. By the 1980s, Pemex was overstaffed, underfunded, and leaking money. Corruption flourished. Contracts were handed out to cronies. Workers were paid to do nothing. And in some cases, oil just vanished. Tankers full of crude oil would disappear off the books overnight. And that was just the beginning. The company also had become entangled with unions, many of which turned into mini mafias. Bribes, ghost employees, and siphoning scandals weren't the exception. They were the operating model. This would all come to a head decades later in what became Pemex's biggest scandal to date. In 2017, Mexican authorities arrested Emilio Lozoya, the former CEO of Pemex. The charge? Taking millions in bribes from the Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht in exchange for rigged contracts. The Odebrecht scandal wasn't just about dirty money. It revealed how Pemex had become a political weapon. Lozoya had been handpicked by President Enrique Peña Nieto. The money flowing from Odebrecht didn't just enrich executives, it allegedly helped fund President's election campaign. Lozoya fled to Europe, was eventually extradited, and began cooperating with prosecutors. But as of today, the full extent of the corruption has never really been uncovered. Pemex has remained opaque. Executives cycle in and out, and somehow the scandals never end. But if you think this was just about corruption at the top, wait until you see how Pemex nearly dragged the entire economy down with it. Pemex is one of the most indebted oil companies in the world. As of 2023, it owed more than $100 billion. That's more than the GDP of some small countries. Why so much debt? Decades of siphoning profits to the government meant Pemex had to borrow to fund its actual operations. Add to that falling oil prices, declining production, and massive infrastructure problems. And the math starts to look apocalyptic. Refineries run at half capacity, oil wells dry up, equipment breaks and doesn't get fixed. Meanwhile, billions are owed to the contractors and bondholders. To keep Pemex afloat, the Mexican government has had to inject billions more. essentially using taxpayer money to patch the holes. But there's a catch. Because Pemex is a state-owned company, its debt is quasi-sovereign. In simple terms, if Pemex sinks, Mexico sinks with it. But why not just let foreign investors fix it? Why not privatize the mess? That's exactly what the government tried to do. In 2013, President Peña Nieto passed a sweeping energy reform bill that ended Pemex's monopoly and opened Mexico's oil fields to private and foreign companies. For the first time in 75 years, outsiders could drill, refine, and profit from Mexican oil. The hope was that competition would force Pemex to modernize, that foreign tech and money would lift the entire sector, and for a while, there was a spark of optimism. But politics got in the way. When Andrés Manuel López Obrador took office in 2018, he slammed the brakes. Nationalism to the core. AMLO rolled back reforms and doubled down on Pemex. He called oil the engine of sovereignty and poured billions into building a brand new refinery in Dos Bocas, despite the cost overruns, environmental concerns, and warnings from economists. So was this revival or just denial dressed up in patriotism? That answer becomes clear when you look at who really controls Pemex today. Here's the paradox. Pemex is owned by the government, but it doesn't really answer to anyone. It doesn't operate like a private company. There's no pressure from shareholders, no transparency. And because it funds so much of the national budget, few presidents dare to truly reform it. It's too big to fail, but also too rotten to thrive. The board is packed with political appointees, leadership changes constantly, and decisions aren't based on profitability. They're based on politics. That's how you get billion-dollar refineries in regions without enough water, or oil exploration in areas that haven't delivered a new discovery in years. Pemex is like a Frankenstein state pride, bureaucratic bloat, and financial dysfunction. So what happens next? Pemex is not just a company, it's a mirror of Mexico's history, its pride, its corruption, and its potential. To save it, the country will have to confront hard questions. Can a state-run behemoth survive in a competitive global market? Can you clean out a system that's been leaking for 80 years? One thing is clear, as long as oil flows beneath Mexican soil, the fight over who controls it and who profits from it is far from over. This is just the beginning. If you want to see more stories like this, unfiltered and untangled, hit subscribe. I'm just getting started. Anyways, thanks for watching.